Hi guys, before I show this video, I'm talking about the movie RoboCop as a dystopia, but it's a vlog style video, so I'm not really critiquing the movie or giving a full commentary on this movie or even summarizing the movie. This is more of a diary, my experience as a reader watching this movie for the first time in at least 25 years. I'm just rambling on, but I'm geeking out on video for all to see. This is more of a diary of just my feelings about this movie. So that is just the warning. You may not get anything out of this video. Some time ago, there was a YouTube Red ad for a movie called The Thinning. And it was a dystopian movie basically about how they thinned out the population. Now, I have not seen this movie, and I don't even know if it came out yet. I think it's already been out. But basically, they would make these kids take a test in school, and the ones who did not pass would get killed. And looked from the trailer that there was some corrupt things going on, and kids that should have passed were given a fail. Just some weird things going on. It was very weird because every time I saw this little tiny trailer, I was completely unnerved. The thing is, of course, part of us would never imagine something like this happening in real life. That sounds absolutely horrible, unethical, against just inhumane. But it unnerved me because it did not seem impossible. Maybe improbable at this point in time, but not impossible. And my brain shut down. There's no way in the world I could watch this movie. It in its own way, it hit too close to home. Even though you would say, no, that would never happen. Well, it could. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe in 25 years. You don't know. And it unnerved me in this way. And then it caused me to think about dystopias. I've been reading since I've learned to read, and my love for books have never changed. But of course, the way you see things change. Your perception, the way you see meanings can change. And I found that I see dystopias in a completely different way as an adult than as a child. As a child, it's just an adventure and it's cool and futuristic, some of them, not all of them. But as an adult, I'm like, oh my gosh, oh yeah. And it's the same thing with, I don't know if it was a year ago or 2 years ago, I read George Orwell's Animal Farm, and I remember it just almost made me sick. I was so blown away. It was a beautiful book, but if I didn't know what I was reading, there was no way you could have told me that it was written in the year that it was written. It could have been written yesterday. And then I read 1984. I remember thinking to myself, when this book was written, in the year that book was written, it probably barely made sense in a way. It would seem so far off, but reading it now, I'm like, this is completely possible. Big Brother, for all I know, is probably in my computer. There's nothing abnormal about this book. I realized, wow, I see dystopians so different now. It's a curse and a blessing to be an adult sometimes. My brain is just like a spinning web in a chain, and it keeps going. And and somehow when I was sitting here thinking about how differently I thought I see dystopias, all of a sudden RoboCop, the movie RoboCop, 1987 RoboCop, came into my head. I just thought to look it up. I noticed that at the time that the 30th anniversary of that movie was approaching, and the movie was released 30 years ago today, July 17th, 1987. The movie is 30 years old today. I am 35. I probably saw the movie when I was like 6. I'm pretty sure I saw the movie when it was released on VHS, probably rented from Blockbuster Video. First of all, I will say that as a kid, I'm not intellectually, logically delving into this movie. This was just an action movie. Obviously, you're rooting for RoboCop. I didn't see dystopian elements. I don't even think I heard of. I was 6. I didn't know what a dystopian is. I didn't even understand the revenge angle. It didn't even like connect that RoboCop was going after the person that killed him as Alex Murphy. But as an adult, I decided to rewatch the movie. I rewatched the movie yesterday because I wanted it fresh in my head. I felt like a little kid again. I was just jumping up and down because as an adult, I'm getting all the dark comedy that I didn't get as a kid. I'm getting all these hidden messages that dystopians often have, and this movie is absolutely beautiful. Even though this movie is 30 years old, it stands the test of time. It's a beautiful movie. It really is. So we have Detroit, Michigan in the near future. I tried to look to see if it had a year the way the reboot movie did. I couldn't find a year. But it's the near future. We have this horrifically crime-ridden Detroit, basically an undermanned law enforcement. They're underfunded. The crime is the Detroit's practically destitute, so they want this idea to bring droids in. And it's eerie because of course we're not seeing big old Ed 209s killing things, but it's a symbol of something that probably has been happening ever since we started getting technology and we started learning how to do things better, but it's something that we are seeing way more in the present and are becoming more fearful of, and that is technology doing the jobs of human beings to the point where people are losing their jobs. Like I said, that is something that has been happening, but I don't know if years ago we as a society imagined it to be where it is now. I mean, there are machines doing jobs that we didn't think we would ever be doing. Even right now, if you want to go into BookTube, there's still a debate on, do we still need librarians? Do we still need libraries? The answer is yes, goddammit. But back to this droid. This was an idea of having a 24-hour droid. But the bottom line is, okay, yes, you're spending tons of money to build this droid, but you don't have to pay it. That's a disaster if you've seen the movie. It's a complete disaster. It kills a human being in a board meeting in a situation that is ridiculously comical. Like, it's so bloody that it's like you can't even take it seriously, which they did on purpose. They wanted it to be over the top. This machine doesn't work. This machine is built by OCP, Omni Consumer Products, who has completely bought out the police department. Now the police department belongs to them, and the deal is that they can turn the rundown section of Detroit into this utopia. There's still going to be parts of Detroit that sucks. And I'm not going to get into it, but you can see where it's going. You can look at the way our life is now and see where that goes. I'm going to jump back and forth because I'm not chronologically going through the movie. I'm just telling you how things are eerie. You have this part where the senior president, Dick Jones, is the one who wants this machine, and you find out he is like crime kingpin. So he's controlling criminals and controlling this cop that he doesn't have to pay. And on top of that, he doesn't even care if the damn thing works. He wanted a deal to send it into the military, and he didn't even care if it works. So you don't care if this machine is killing innocent human beings. If you're a Family Guy fan, you might have noticed there is a scene. There is a episode where Peter Griffin is competing against his wife. I think it was either to be the principal of the school or head of board. I think it was the head of Board of Education. And he was like, yeah, we have this new security. And it was the Ed 209. And the Ed 209 said basically you have 20 seconds to show the hall pass. She showed it, she got shot anyway, and it's a parody of that. The reason why Alex Murphy dies is because the police department is undermanned. They're told that they have a crime in progress. They go there and they're calling for backup and they're like, 15 minutes, and they decide to go anyway. I'm not saying that's how the police department is now, but there are a lot of situations in everywhere where people die waiting. And the thing is, there was nothing in my mind that would say, nah, that couldn't happen. Alex Murphy belonged to OCP, and he signed in his paperwork that basically that if he was legally dead, they can do anything with their bodies. That is another thing that I could see this happening in real life, except for I would not necessarily see it happening in the police department. I could see it happening in the military. My history of makes me very myopic when it comes to the military, but the government, the Department of Defense, and the Veteran Administration has proven that they are cold-hearted people, and I wouldn't put it past the government to fully claim servicemen are government property, and I wouldn't put it past them if they have the technology to put it in the contract that if you're legally dead, we don't have to return your body to the family. We can make you into some funky droid. Sorry, but I have not seen good things. So, something that I didn't notice when I was a kid that I notice now, this is just beautiful, is that you have the sandwich. You have the Ed 209, which is pure machine, and you see the complete faults in it. It's not perfect. It's made by humans. It's a failure. And then you have human beings as cops. And, well, they're human beings. They have organs. They can die. Or once they're lost, they're lost. And then you have this compromise between the two. You have a machine with organic material thrown in it. The whole movie shows you that this doesn't work at all. Unfortunately, the robotic side of RoboCop fails in some ways, and so does the human part. The human side failed in ways that we didn't expect because OCP, when they brought up this project, they thought they killed his humanity. So he was just supposed to be this machine, but had the ability to think in the way that a machine couldn't. Then all of a sudden these memories came back and he ended up being on this vendetta, but then the machine part's working against him. And I think the reason why it stands the test of time is because how human this movie is. Greed is one of those things that will do crazy things to you. You see the corruption of Dick Jones. He's a human being, and he couldn't even open his mind to RoboCop because he was so thirsty to get his Ed 209 out there in the military, regardless of whether it worked, that he didn't even care if RoboCop was actually effectively cutting down crime, which he was, which would have saved money because that would have been less cops to pay. He didn't even care. Even though OCP technically was reaching their goal, RoboCop works, he didn't care. He wanted his idea out there, and now it wasn't because of RoboCop. And he ended up killing the person who designed RoboCop because he wanted to be Top Gun. Like, that's really how you solve your problems. You just kill someone. And I know that I'm going back and forth, but as I said, I don't do things scripted. I'm just doing a nostalgia thing. But I know it's easy these days to judge a movie just by aesthetics now because we have so much technology and so many ways to make a movie that someone could look at the old RoboCop and say, wow, wow, this movie's old, but I saw nothing but beauty in this movie. I'm just talking about the value that I see in this movie that I didn't see as a kid. I see so much beauty in the scripting of this movie that I couldn't have possibly seen as a 6-year-old because I didn't understand human being. I already mentioned it, but I think one of the things that jumps out at me the most is I found one of the terms I just found it was technological unemployment. I wonder if when this script was written, whoever had the idea for RoboCop, was it just a true fantasy for them? Or were they thinking to themselves, this could really happen one day? We have droids now. I mean, we don't have droids walking up and down the streets, but we have droids now. Droids are being used. Droids are doing jobs that human beings used to do. But what was so beautiful is, I think, was Dick Jones' greed. He had put this classified directive that would cause it that if RoboCop tried to arrest any senior officer of OCP, he would shut down. And it was beautiful because he did that because he was committing crimes. But he tried to destroy RoboCop with the Ed 209, which is completely faulty, and it didn't work. And he ordered the cops to do it. And it was just beautiful to see the cops saying, "No, he's a cop." They saw that he was a machine, but they still saw him as a cop. In my opinion, there's nothing in that movie that wasn't in a sense already present in 1987. It was just over the top and futuristic, but there are so many elements. If you really look at that movie, there's so much symbolism in that movie that it's overwhelming, and I was almost overwhelmed. RoboCop in itself is just a symbol. He's a symbol of greed. He's a symbol of just lack of ethics. I don't believe that any company has the right to just do whatever they want with a dead body, and I don't think if you sign something that's what you're expecting that's going to happen to your body. I mean, unless you explicitly say, if I die, try to make me RoboCop. I don't see how any human being would sign any contract thinking that after they're dead, their brain's going to be put. It's just, and even though that hasn't happened, you can see the element of greed, and just you can see that itself is a symbol of exploitation. If some of you are like, really, Joy, you're blasted, come on. But it is. It completely is. It's like, F this man's body, F his family. He signed the contract. We can do whatever we want with his body. Human beings right now are being treated like that. Not in the literal sense, but they are. When it comes to greed, human beings aren't human beings. They are a machine, a well-oiled machine that is making things work. I know I'm getting so deep into this. It's just what I see. In the sense that when Alex Murphy was rebuilt as RoboCop, he initially had no memory of who he was and what he was and his past. And he ended up literally being triggered. He had a dream. He had a nightmare. But a lot of people who suffer from PTSD have nightmares. And with PTSD, often the traumatic experiences are repressed, and you forget a lot of things, and it comes back in flashbacks and in your dreams in forms of nightmares. And when RoboCop was in the sleep mode, this is exactly what happened. All of a sudden, these memories that probably weren't supposed to be there, that OCP had more than likely tried to erase, came out. When you have a PTSD affected brain, you don't know where those memories are. It comes out, and he's going into cop mode looking for what he's seeing in these memories. And his former partner, who had realized that it was Alex, was like, "Do you remember me? Your name's Murphy." And then that triggers something. And, he's getting all these flashbacks. Maybe you wouldn't necessarily call it PTSD. The way it was scripted to emerge resembles PTSD because of the fact that he had no memory and it came back. Just like with me, between 2007 and 2012, there's a lot of my life that is missing that often comes back in my dreams. And I don't think I would have seen it if I didn't suffer it from myself. In my opinion, resembles the way like PTSD stuff would come out. He finds out where Alex Murphy, where he used to live, visits the house, goes in the house, and then is seeing all these memories. I was like, oh wow. Goes to show you that you can't erase humanity. You really can't. Tried to take away his humanity. They wanted his brain because he could think more like a cop than Ed 209, but they ended up having a real human. When he originally went after the person that killed him, he arrested him and turned him in and corruption's corruption, so he got out, and so did all his buddies. But at the end, what was so beautiful, and RoboCop's holding a gun, and he says, "I'm not arresting you anymore. Like, I'm gonna kill you." And it was just so beautiful. It was just these little things, bits and pieces of this movie over the years, but I do not believe that I've watched this movie in its entirety since I was a child. I probably watched it a couple times as a child. I'm 99.9% sure that I have never watched this movie as an adult. I was watching this movie as a reader because I was watching it with, my boyfriend decided that he was playing video games, but he kept turning around, and I'm commenting through the whole thing because I'm watching this movie as a reader, and I noticed that. So I'm like breaking down every little piece of this movie. This movie is a book to me. Usually you have a situation where you always say the book is better. You want to read the book because you want to imagine things yourself. There were so many little pieces in this movie, all these messages, as I said, that dystopians often have. Dystopians often have a commentary, a message about our humanity. Being able to see the movie as a dystopia, something that I couldn't see as a child. I just saw, oh, it's in the future, this is cool, RoboCop. I didn't understand why RoboCop existed in the first place. And as an adult, of course, I see why he's existed and why all of a sudden he needs to be destroyed. There are people who don't want complete success because complete success means that something disappears. It blew my mind when Dick Morton said about sending the Ed 209 through the military. Okay, imagine this droid, in 2017 going out to Iraq and this man saying, "Who cares if it didn't work?" It's like, are you kidding me? So you're willing to put our troops in danger just for your money? Yes. And there are people like that now. That's not the future. There were people like that when the movie was made. That's what a dystopia setting is about. It's not just a story. Dystopians always do that. They always throw in your face a message and all this symbolism. It's hidden within a world that doesn't exist, that we think couldn't exist, that we hope never exists, because that's why it's called a dystopia. But we're also shown how that world exists within us now. And this particular dystopian world is completely feasible. And like I said, maybe not tomorrow, but you never know. Dystopians often turn a mirror at us and shows us. And if you really look at a lot of dystopian books, you can see it. I think that's why I wanted to revisit this movie. Because first of all, finding out it's about to turn 30 years old, it's beautiful. Compared to what I can remember as a child and now, I still see it as like this action film, and it's exciting. And I was smiling through this whole movie because there was so much I could appreciate that I could not appreciate as a child. What's scary is in the end, Dick Jones didn't necessarily want to fight crime. A clean Detroit didn't really pay. The only reason why OCP wanted to make a Delta City was just so the rich people could move in. There would still be a place of crime. The crime boss that was in his employ, it made no sense because, we're going to make this utopia, but then this is a fresh canvas for you. You can introduce your drugs and stuff, which would just increase crime, and hopefully after he destroys RoboCop, he can do his Ed 209 and put it in the utopia, and it was just a win-win situation for him. This is how people are. How some people are. They don't care. Business is business. In many ways, people don't benefit financially from people being 100% healthy. People don't benefit financially from a crime-free area. And I don't mean that just in the sense that, cops won't have a job, because cops will always have a job, because there will always be human beings being gross. But there are human beings on this planet that would be horrified if we were completely crime free. Everyone else would be cheering, yeah, we're safe, but this person is like, no, wait a minute, I'm not making any money. I can't have people feeling safe. It doesn't work with my plan. I can't have people being cancer free. It doesn't fit with my plan. There are people that are just that gross. And this movie, as over the top as it is on purpose, you're gross, and this is what happens when you're gross. It's so funny, in 2017 to watch this movie. I watched an unrated version. I'm watching it and thinking, wow, this was a movie that was gonna get a rated X. And rated X had a horrible stigma because it was looked at as a porn rating. But because of the heavy blood and violence, RoboCop was going to get a rated X, which we would now consider NC-17, and it was edited to just get a rated R. And it was weird. I guess it's because I've seen so much since then, and that it didn't register that this was NC-17 material. But it shows how much we have changed, and I highly doubt that if this movie was made now, and I'm not talking about the reboot, I'm talking about this movie exactly the way it is now, made now, there is no way that people would say, wait a second, we're gonna have to give this NC-17 unless you edit it. There's no way in the world it would get NC-17. I just wanted to say this is a really beautiful movie, and if you haven't seen in this movie in years, I suggest you revisit it and just watch it and just really look for everything that's in there. The value of this movie as a true dystopia. It is a true dystopia. This movie reads like a book, and I can't say that about all movies because some movies are obviously very shallow to where there's nothing to read into. But this movie has true dystopian value to where you can read into it. Definitely stands the test of time. I can't believe this movie is 30 years old. My goodness. I would love to see how some of you feel watching this. If you see what I see, if you see any of the things I see, if you see the dystopian value, if you see the messages that they're showing in this movie, the greed, the message on humanity and human nature and corruption and all those things, if you see it there, I would love for you to tell me. Thank you for sitting with me. The next video I will go back to talking about. And I want to wish you well. If I don't see you again this week, which I hope I will see you next week. Have a great week and happy reading. See you later.